Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video, I am going to be making some adjustments to these RX Tongs bending fork. I mentioned in my RX Tongs videos, if you haven't seen the complete playlist on those, that will be linked up in the description and at the end of this video. I made a suggestion. I talked about how I was going to take a look at maybe rounding off this handle a little bit, turning it into a little something more decorative, and then maybe easing off the corners. So I'm going to show you the process of how to do that if you do pick up this tool. Again, thank you Rex, and thank you Ed for sending me these tools free of charge. I do greatly appreciate that. And that brings me to the next point, is this is not a sponsored video, but they were kind enough to send these over to me for free. So, FYI, for your information. So the first step in this, we'll go ahead and get the handle portion hot, because that's going to take the most amount of work. The other is going to be at the vise itself. So we'll get our forging end of it done first and foremost. Okay, just like in our tong making video, we're going to try to hammer off the corners first, where we're going to be holding it up to about 6 inches long. Just get that established so that way it's radiused off somewhat. And then we'll go on to our decorative elements, if you will, or the parts that we plan on making more pretty. So again, the goal here is we're not trying to stretch this out or lengthen it. It's going to a little bit by hammering the corners off, but the main goal is just to take the corners off in this first operation. Now you could easily leave it just like you see I got it here. You could easily leave it this way and call that good, but I personally would like some way of hanging this. So we're going to undertake one more process to be able to make this thing a little bit more, suitable for that purpose, to be able to hang this thing up. So we'll heat that back up. Okay, now we're going to lay on about 2 inches of material, or 50 mil, and we are going to hammer straight down with half on, half off blows. And we're going to draw this section of material out. Once you lose the heat, put it back in the fire. You're not doing yourself any justice. So we're going to continue to take and draw this piece out, and then I'm going to show you how to make a vine wrap kind of handle. Okay, nice and hot. Once again, I'm going to continue to draw this out. Okay, now we'll go to the horn and help expedite that drawing out process by being directly over the horn. That will help us get this thinner a lot quicker. Okay, now up on the diagonal, we're going to start taking off the corners. And now we're going to radius those corners into the rest of the piece. And you can make this as smooth of a round as you like. Since I'm leaving it kind of viney, I'm not going to make it perfectly round just because there's not a need in it. But again, this is open to interpretation based upon what you are after personally as a goal for an artist. So there we go. We've got it nice and round, as you can see. Looking pretty good. The next step, next operation, we need to actually bend this away from the shoulder. So that's what we'll do now. Let's get that good and hot. Also, before we do that, real quick, I'm going to bend my tip ever so lightly up out of the way. That way I can get that shoulder good and hot in the forge. So I can get that shoulder, grab Mr. Thing here, right here, the center of the fire, really good and hot here, because that's where I need it to do the most of the bending. If I were to lay this in flat like this, this is going to get super hot before this does. So giving myself just a little bit of a courtesy bend there so I can keep the non-essential piece out of the fire while getting the rest of it up nice and scalding hot. Alrighty, we're good and hot. Now we're going to go ahead, bring it over the horn, and I'm going to bend it away. Now as I do this, I'm going to try to start sharpening up that upset there, right there at that corner, right at that juncture. I'll start hammering that up. I'll start upsetting that corner a little bit and trying to clean that up. That's just going to give it a nice transitional look to the piece. So take one more heat on that corner. Again, I need to make sure I bend this out of my way, bend that tail of that vine out of the way so I can get that corner down in the fire to create that upset. Continue to upset that piece. And this is going to have multiple effects here, but one of the effects that it will definitely have is it will have this very interesting effect, if you will, when we've upset it like we have here. It'll be very difficult to kind of see where that kind of came from. It's kind of a play on the eyes, and that's one thing I like about this technique here. All right, we'll get this all rounded up here, up into line. All right, brush that. Now we are ready to put the loop on our handle. Hopefully you guys can see that really well, how that transition, how that plays out really nicely. So now we'll heat up the rest of this vine bit and roll it on around. Okay, so we're good and hot. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of just start freehanding this circle that I'm looking for here, this radius. Now, if you feel more comfortable going around a mandrel, definitely do that. I'm just going to freehand it a little bit, just so this way I can kind of play with its development as it goes. I do this often just so this way I can explore new shapes. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfectly round. Sometimes something like a squatted oval can look nice, you know, so sometimes it's nice to practice and freehand just a little bit. Will give you some interesting results just by playing a little bit. If you want it perfectly round, go ahead and make it perfectly round. Just watch whenever you're hammering on it that you're not putting flat spots inadvertently or big gouge marks. So there we went to go completely round and got that pigtailed up. Now to make the rest of the vine. We'll heat up that little bit of an end there. Again, watch how you're heating this. You can get into a lot of trouble real quick. Now we're going to use scrolling tongs. This is better done with scrolling tongs or a pair of needle nose pliers because of how quick you lose heat in the piece and how you need to just be able to wrench this piece around to where you want it without disturbing too much else of the actual item in question. You know, you don't want to destroy your eye. This will help you be able to adjust things very quickly. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to come down a little bit more. I have to put a few more little adjustment tweaks in that. I'm going to hammer that a little bit tighter. Hold it out here. Get that loop just a little bit on the tighter side. And then we'll heat that up a bit more and keep working on it. The only key requirement in this whole process is to make sure that you don't burn up that little rat's tail on the end. That's it, basically. We're good and hot again. All right, so now I'm going to use, since we're good and hot again, I'm going to keep rolling this on over to create the vine effect that I'm after. I'm going to have to go ahead and get it hot one more time. Yep. I'm going to get it hot one more time. What's funny is I say one more time, but it's probably going to be like 50 other times. I'll just edit it out mostly. Like, yeah, I'll just do this one more time. And it takes like 12 more times. So, but you all know how it is. So yeah, so I'm going to bend that a little tighter. Then I'm going to bend it around this piece. Yeah, that's going to look pretty good. Come over here to the near edge of the anvil. Still keeping that tight and supported. Come to the hardy hole. Really, anything that helps you accomplish your mission, don't be afraid to do it. No. Sometimes we get held up on that we actually have to use the anvil and the hammer all the time in order to be a real blacksmith or whatever. And a real blacksmith of yesteryear would have used whatever tool came into his hands that made his life easier, as it was a career and not a luxury. So we'll just keep working on that bit there until we get it on around. It's really important not to make this too manufactured looking. You want it to be viney if you're making a vine. So just keep that in mind. You very quickly make this thing look very synthesized, very synthetic looking, and that may or may not be what you're looking for. But if you're looking to make a vine, the less synthesized it looks, the better off it'll be. And it looks even better when it's coming from a piece like this, where you're doing something that's very mechanical looking, in the like, as in the way that what this thing is supposed to be doing, right? Like, this thing is a twisting wrench. It's a tool. It's meant to twist steel. It's kind of very mechanical, right, in nature. And then it's got this little detail on the end, just a hint of a detail of the plasticity of steel. And that's just a really nice compliment, I believe anyhow, to the way ironwork looks. Kind of a salute to blacksmiths. That all straightened up. Yeah, that looks really good. So there we go. That's where we're going to leave it. I'm going to leave it just like that. Boom. So there you have it. There's that end completely done on that side of things. So now I'll let that cool down and we'll go over the vise and I'll show you how we're going to round these up to make these a little bit better. Okay, so here we are at the vise. I've got the small end up, the end that was used in adjusting the reins. Hold on one second. I'll grab an example of that. The small end of these were used to adjust these reins over into position. So that's what the small ends used for. But if you can see on these tongs here without any dressing, hopefully you can see the bite marks from the edge of this tool while the tongs were hot. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick in a file that fits between the two, and we're going to hold it at approximately a 45-degree angle. We don't want to come in here, we can't go too steep of an angle, and it doesn't help to be too shallow. So we're going to hold it to where it just touches the other side and back it off just ever so slightly of the front side of the twisting fork here. And all we're going to do is remove a little shoulder. So remember, files only cut on the push stroke. So every time I pull back, I'm picking up off the piece, I'm relieving it, and then I'm going forward. Now I'll work on that front side. So only put pressure on the push stroke. All right, now that's going to alleviate off that edge. I'm going to do it to the other side. By the way, I should say this, don't do this with a really good file that you much care about. These flame cut pieces, they do have a little bit of carburization to the edges here because of being flame cut, and so therefore they will be really hard to file. It's not going to bite really good until you get down into the softer bits of the piece of the material. Again, use a decent file, but don't just use your best fine finish files for this purpose. Now, one other alternative before I let you go, after I get this done here, one of the other alternatives to doing this cold is you could obviously hot rasp this, although hot rasping, requires the piece to be hot, and that's number one. And two, since it has to be hot, it will severely limit you on being able to do an accurate job of filing this. So as where you might be able to go a little quick, you're going to pay for an accuracy of what you're trying to do. You might actually bend these or something else. So if you don't have to get this in hot, don't. But that's it. That's all you have to do to alleviate those. Now, one other thing I may do is get a bit of sandpaper and sand it like that, so this way they're nice and perfectly smooth. But hopefully you guys can see those 45s, the way that they work there. Those little facets, try to turn it in the light here so you all can see those facets are moving. But yeah, so I mean, that's basically it. It's a lot better than that sharpness that we started off with. Now, I don't worry about the crotch of this here. It's not going to matter because that's not going to impact your work. It's the biting when you wedge a piece between those 2 points that will actually impact the finished look of your work. So, and we'll go ahead and these, same way with these, same thing. You want to remove about a 45-degree angle. The only difference is you actually have space here. Consequently, this is a file I use to check hardness when I'm heat treating. So it's not a wore out file, but it's not the best file in the best condition either. So it works for my purposes. The key is to keep the whole thing consistently the same angle, whether you're working at the front of this twisting wrench or you're working at the rear of the twisting wrench, the bottom jaw. Just keep the filing consistent. Consistently the same angle if you can. And really, when you get this tool, it only takes mere moments to do this. I mean, as you can see, we haven't been doing it that long, and we've already got this thing about licked. both ends. Good. All right, and that's got it. That's all there is to it, folks. So, at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like, comment down below what you thought. I appreciate you watching nonetheless. And as always, God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one.